بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. The Shaykh, he recited from Surah A'raf, where the people of Jannah, they say, Alhamdulillah الذي هدانا لهذا, Alhamdulillah, to the one who guided us to this. Alhamdulillah الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not guide us to this, then there's nothing to guide us to this. And that's a really profound statement. That's a realization that you and I have to have in every moment, that if Allah did not guide me to come to the masjid today, if Allah did not guide me to this deen today, where would I be? And on the day of judgment, when you enter Jannah, is when that full reality of that statement is felt. When you taste the sweetness of Jannah, when you enjoy the pleasures of Jannah. But before then, you have to anticipate it. You have to anticipate that reward. You have to anticipate that you're going to enter Allah's Jannah because Allah has guided you. And then you continue to ask for that guidance. It's not a guaranteed thing. But in Jannah, when you make that statement, that sweet statement, it's the final time that you have to make it, because now you've earned Allah's pleasure. You've seen the reality of that. And then the people of Jannah, they say to the people outside of Jannah, the people in the hellfire, did you get what you were promised? And they said, yes. These people also got the message. These people were also invited to guidance. They were also invited to the truth. And they were told that if you don't follow this truth, this is what will happen. And they got what they were told that would come to them. And that day, the reality is clear to them. It's clear to them that they should have accepted the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when the prophets and the messengers came to them, they should have accepted it. Later in Surah A'raf, there's just stories of prophets after prophets who come to a people. They're trying to guide their people. And the people reject clear signs from Allah, clear miracles that Allah gives them. And often when we hear about the destruction of these people, right, it sounds very harsh. It sounds very harsh how the people of Thamud and the people of Ad and the people of Nuh, how they were destroyed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only destroys those nations after the guidance and the miracles come down to them. So it's so clear to them that this is guidance. It's so clear to them that this is truth. And then when they reject it wholeheartedly, like there's nothing for you to reject. It's clear as day. And they reject it, then Allah destroys those people as a lesson. And then in that interaction between the people of Jannah and the people of Jahannam, there's a third group. There's a people who's in between at this moment. They haven't entered Jannah, so they haven't realized that statement yet, that Alhamdulillah, Allah has guided us. And at the same time, they haven't gone to Jahannam, and they haven't been shown the punishment yet. And those people in between, the people of Jahannam would say to people like that, people who are maybe not the strongest in their iman, maybe the people who can't do what sheikhs can do. They can't recite the Quran. They haven't memorized the Quran. They're not able to pray for 20 rak'ah. They're not able to do all the extra fasting throughout the year. Those people, the shayateen of ins, they try to incite them and say that the mercy of Allah is not coming to you. There's no mercy coming to you. And so they want you to quit. And they were hoping that on the day of judgment that those people would be with them in the hellfire, and Allah's mercy comes down on those people, and Allah enters them into His Jannah. Because the day of judgment, there are only two things that you can earn. You either earn the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that you go to Jahannam. People want justice, right, in this life. Justice means you're taken to account. And justice on the day of judgment is that you go to Jahannam. Because none of us can fulfill the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of us fulfill the rights of other people even. And then the other thing that you can earn on that day is the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you earn the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means that you've entered Allah's Jannah. Allah's Jannah is the manifestation of Allah being pleased with you, Allah showing you His rahmah. And then right after these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to make dua to Him, to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala privately and openly, quietly and out loud. And this is the month for that. There's no coincidence that in the one part in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly mentions the verses about Ramadan, right? Right after that, Allah mentions that you should call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This month is about calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Him for that mercy, asking Him for that guidance. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now for that guidance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who enter Jannah and we can say those sweet words. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that mercy. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant that mercy to all the Muslimin, all the people who follow the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, all the people who come to pray, all the people around the world who say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And we ask Allah to make us of those who call on Him silently, quietly, hidden, and in the apparent out loud. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.